Hello, Christo, and welcome to the session. Today we will look at how to produce a visually enhanced research summary for your assignment. As you already know from the excellent presentation produced by Judith, the assignment is divided into two separate but linked parts. Part 1 is the critically annotated bibliography which Judith has guided you through already. Please do follow her advice and use the materials that are available, as these will be invaluable. As you can see from the slide here, I've just included the information for the first part of the assignment as a reminder for you. It's important that you complete part 1 before you begin part 2. You don't want to have to alter your summary after you've completed it unless absolutely necessary. You can see that this is a 2,000 word equivalent task. This doesn't mean that we expect you to write 2,000 words, but for this part to take you around the same time as it would to produce a 2,000 word summary. This is in essence a summary or a mini version of the critically annotated bibliography. If you think of the articles you've read for this assignment, you can probably visualize the abstract at the beginning of each article. Think of this section of the assignment as simply a more visually attractive version of this abstract with an evaluation of the article, talking about the strengths and perhaps weaknesses of it. If looking at the visually enhanced summary produced by another student, you would have a good idea of what the assignment was all about and the conclusions and recommendations they'd made. Now, this is going to be presented to the senior leadership team, so please ensure that you check your work carefully for any errors. It may also be shared with the governing body of the school or with other colleagues, so it's particularly important in enabling them to see how focused you are upon conducting your educational research. Now, if you're asked to take a portfolio of your work to an interview this year, the summary would be useful to include to show that you're a research-informed practitioner. Now, this document could make a real difference to your school. Each research champion has chosen the focus with care to ensure it's relevant to your school and could be responsible for setting the school on a particular pathway in the coming years. The format is important for you also, as hopefully you'll want to continue your research when you complete the PGCE course, and the formats we've asked you to select from will set you in good stead for presenting any further research. Well, a poster presentation can take place in one large room, several smaller rooms, or even on a balcony. Then, as viewers walk by, your poster should quickly and efficiently communicate your research. Unlike the fast pace of a slideshow or verbal presentation, a poster session allows viewers to study and then restudy your information and discuss it with you on a one-to-one basis. You should be prepared to discuss your research with students and school colleagues and answer any questions they have or provide extra information if needed. Unlike a research-based paper, which might run from 15 to perhaps 80 pages or more, a standard poster will include only around 3 to 4 pages of single-space text or graphics in 12-point font. In other words, writers for posters have very little space to fill, particularly if they have to explain complex ideas or research. Now, the poster presentation is a summary or abstract of an idea, an activity or research. Only the amount of information that can be absorbed by the viewer in 5 minutes or less should be presented. If more time than this is required by the reviewer, the presenter can verbally communicate additional information to the interested party. Pictures and words must work together to amplify, clarify, and extend the focal point of the poster. Adding details and specific examples is acceptable. However, busy or wordy posters can interfere with the process of effective communication. The contents of a poster are like a research paper, a slide presentation, or other scientific communication, and the poster should flow from left to right and from top to bottom. Don't try to include the most complete explanations of complex ideas on a poster, but do use text to convey key points. Also, make your text easy to read by chunking information in bullets, in lists, or short paragraphs, and use clear headings throughout. Depending on the information you need to convey, you can choose from various types of graphics. Because you're posting your graphics on a poster, you'll need to enlarge them enough to be seen from a distance. Keep in mind that most viewers would be 4 to 8 feet away from the poster. Do you need arrows to direct readers' eyes from one chunk to the next in a logical sequence? Do you need to number headings to show your flow of ideas? Should you combine chunks to show clearly a close relationship to these ideas? Work back and forth, revising for clarity and arrangement before you decide that your poster is ready to assemble. A poster that includes only text in a small font will not attract viewers from far away. But a poster that uses large headings to announce topics, that includes graphics and text, that uses colour and white space wisely, will attract the viewer. Now here we have an example of a poster. You can see here approximately how much space you should consider allocating to each section. As you can see, we read the poster from left to right, with the implications and recommendations on the right-hand side. If you want to see examples of posters used to present to colleagues, then go to the second floor of C Block, where posters produced by Masters in Educational Practice students are displayed. These will give you an idea of how to make your poster eye-catching and simple to follow. Now we're going to have a look at another option for the visually enhanced presentation, the infographic. You've probably seen and read dozens of these, but without perhaps realising what they were called. They're a really popular way for businesses and individuals
also known as
to convey a
information
message
graphic, it is a
clearly
visual
to an
representation
audience.
of information and data,
Now have a look
portrayed
at
in
the
the form of
video
a chart,
for more
graph,
information.
or other image
I would
accompanied by
suggest
minimal
you're a little
text,
cautious when
intended
watching
to
the
give an
video,
easily
though,
understood
because I
overview,
think there may be
often of
some
a complex
exaggeration
subject.
with the
The very
figures that
first
you
known
see
infographic
presented
dates
here.
back to 1626. It used to depict
What is
the
an
rotation patterns
infographic?
of the sun.
Also known as
160
information graphic, it
years
is a
later,
visual representation of
infographics used to
information
present
and data,
statistical graphs
portrayed in the
and
form
charts
of a
introducing
chart,
the very
graph,
first pie
or
chart
other
into the
image,
world.
accompanied by
Around
minimal text,
1820s,
intended to give an
geographical
easily
maps
understood
called
overview,
superscience include
often of a
frames,
complex
scales, and
subject.
Greek
The
map
very
legends.
first known
But
infographic
essentially,
dates
they were
back to
just infographics
1626.
used by
It used to depict the
geographers.
rotation
It
patterns of the
consisted of
sun.
symbols,
160
icons,
years
and
later,
uses as
infographics
representations.
used to present
In Victorian
statistical
England,
graphs and
a
charts,
simple nurse
introducing
used
the very first
information
pie
graphics to
chart into
persuade
the
the queen
world.
to improve
Around
conditions in military
1820s,
hospitals.
geographical
And
maps
when we
called
speak of
superscience
information
included
graphics as we know
frames,
them today,
scales, and
we
Greek
have to
map
truly
legends.
thank Edward
But
Tuff,
essentially,
the
they were just
pioneer in data
infographics used by
visualization, often referred
geographers
to as
that
the Da Vinci
consisted of
data.
symbols,
As his
icons, and
design
indexes as
principles or theories on good
representations.
data
In
visualization
Victorian
can
England,
be
a
seen in
simple
many
nurse used
websites,
information
magazines, and
graphics to
prints that we
persuade
use
the
today.
Queen to improve
Why do we
conditions
use
in
them?
military
All
hospitals.
humans are
But when we
essentially
speak of
visually
information
wired.
graphics as we know them
50%
today,
of our
we
brain
have
is
to
involved
truly
in
thank
visual
Edward
processing of
Tuft, the
information that we
pioneer in
observe
data
from our
visualization,
surroundings.
often referred to
70%
as
of
the Da
all
Vinci
human
of data.
sensory
As
receptors
his
are
design
located in the
principles and
eyes.
theories on
And
good
it takes
data
essentially just
visualization
10
can be seen in
milliseconds
many
for a human
websites,
brain
magazines,
to
and
understand
prints
the
that we use
observed
today.
visual scene.
But why do we use them?
150 milliseconds
All
to
humans are
process a written
essentially
symbol,
visually
and
wired.
100 milliseconds
50%
to
of our
attach
brain
meaning
is
to
involved
it.
in visual
Our
processing of
brain's visual
information that we
system
observe
allows
from
us
our
to identify
surroundings.
trends and patterns in the
70% of all
information we
human
observe.
sensory
And in the
receptors
age
are
of
located in
information
the eyes,
overload,
and
our
it takes
brain seeks
essentially
for
just
fast
10
solutions in
milliseconds for a
understanding the
human
world
brain
that surrounds
to
us.
understand the observed
Today, we
visual
receive
scene,
5 times as much
150
information as
milliseconds
within
to
90
process a written
days.
symbol,
We
and
consume
100
around
milliseconds to
34
attach meaning
gigabytes
to
of
it.
information on an
Our
average
brain's
day,
visual
and
system
that's
allows us
just
to
outside
identify
work.
trends and
The
patterns
amount
in the
of the
information we
visualized
observe.
information in literature
And in the age of
increased in
information overload,
400%
our
since
brain seeks for
1990s,
fast
and a
solutions in
gigantic
understanding the world that surrounds us.
9,900%
Today,
increase
we
of
receive
visuals on the
5 times
internet,
as much
and
information
that's
as
just
within
since
1980s.
2007.
We
Only
consume around
28%
34
of words on a
gigabytes
web
of
page are
information on
actually
an
read
average
on
day,
an average
and
visit.
that's just outside work.
Infographics have
The
proved to
amount of the
provide us
visualized
information
information in
in a clear
literature
and
increased
quick
in
way.
400%
Color
since
visuals
the
have proved to
1990s,
increase
and a
willingness to read
gigantic
and are labeled as more engaging
9,900%
information
increase of
source.
visuals on on the internet, and that's just since 2007. Only 28% of words on a web page are actually read on an average visit. And infographics have proved to provide us information in a clear and quick way. Color visuals are proved to increase willingness to read and are labeled as more engaging information source. Visual icons on medical prescriptions increase the rate of understanding of the label up to 95%, and using a visual map to follow directions helps people understand their geographical orientation up to 300% better than people just following textual directions. Our brain's memory is essentially visual, as we tend to remember up to 80% of the things we see and do, compared to what we hear or read. Infographics can be used in multiple ways, presenting flowcharts versus comparisons of data, maps and timelines, visual articles, statistical graphs, informational design and architecture, photo or illustration lists. There are multiple tools out there in the market, just to name a few. Also, according to the study conducted at Wharton School of Business, only half of the audience are persuaded by purely verbal presentation. Though if we add visuals to the same verbal information, we will persuade 67% of the audience. So we'd like to thank the 24 people in the audience for your attention.
Created using Powtoon.
Do you know what it takes to create a unique and engaging infographic? Striking colors, neat typography, sensational headlines? There are so many roads that your infographic could go down. At its core, an infographic is supposed to be a quick and easy way of conveying information to your audience. It should visually appeal to the audience, convey essential data, build awareness, and maybe even generate leads if you're using infographics for business purposes. So, what makes an infographic effective? Number 1, informational honesty. We live in an internet age where fact-checking is easier than ever. So be sure that all the information in your infographic is truthful and honest. If you provide figures from somewhere else, back up these figures by asterisking your sources. Number 2, legibility. Although it's tempting to whip out the calligraphy-style fonts in an effort to look fancy, you should prioritize fonts which are simple and easy to read. Also, avoid making your infographic too busy, keeping the style on the minimalist side. Number 3, simple illustrations. Make your illustrations simple and ensure that they complement the data being conveyed in the infographic. Complex illustrations will distract your audience from what's important, your message. You're trying to communicate information, not replace Rembrandt. Number 4, limited colors. Limit your color palette if you're trying to create an infographic which is visually appealing. As a general rule of thumb, use 3 main colors, with the lightest color forming the background, and the darker 2 colors breaking up different sections. Too many clashing colors will give your audience a headache. Number 5, interactive elements. Although adding interactive elements to your infographic is appealing, consider whether it is relevant to what you're trying to achieve. If you need to convey a lot of information about different subjects, interactivity could be the easiest way to spread out this information without having to make your font tiny. And there you have it. Go forth and spread your message with your fancy new infographic.